start. So if I could request everyone to settle after the tea, we have our panel discussion 3 approaching. We've got 2 panel discussions before we will end the day today. Our current panel discussion is on digital lending in Pakistan, innovation and challenges. This will be followed by panel discussion 4, which is Agritech in Pakistan, innovation and challenges. Tomorrow, we expect to start again at 9:30 a.m., where we will have an exciting panel discussion, which is the Women's Forum, Digital Financial Literacy and Creating Female Digital Entrepreneurs. So I'd like to introduce the session host, which is Ms. Noreen Hayat, Chief Executive Officer, Sohail. Noreen brings 12 years of experience in financial technology and microfinance. Her work focuses on social upliftment, healthy families, poverty, and revolutionizing the microfinance sphere. She founded Tez Financial Services, which was the first digital non-bank finance company in Pakistan. Noreen, thank you so much for being with us, and please go ahead and invite the panelists.
I will actually, I'd like to invite all of you guys. You guys know who you are, right? So I'm just going to take it easy. Abubakr is joining us here from Mobilink Microfinance Bank today. I'd like to invite on stage Abrar Ameen Saab from CEO-Seedcreed, Kamran Zuberi from Finja, Nilofer Sohail from EFU Life, and Omar Saab from Tasdeeq. Does that complete our panel? I'm sorry, guys. I really hope you guys are not short of introductions. I hope everyone knows already who you guys are. In the best interest of time, I'm just cutting down on introductions. Abrar Ameen Saab, can we have you here? He's there? Lovely. See. Well, I guess that's what happens after lunch and tea, everyone sleeps a little. But, we'll try to keep the session today very engaging. What I've seen with most of the panels that I've been a part of as well, of course, opinions matter. It's a lot about, and it's usually the same conversations that we're having over and again. So today's session, we really hope to elicit actual key takeaways for, what we really want the digital lending space in Pakistan to look like. All of you guys, some way or the other, are impacting the digital, you guys are molding the digital lending space. Some of them are veterans already in this space. And, we do understand that the individuals over here, they're not representative of the entire sector. So a lot of the participants who are not here today, what we would want to do is, I would urge PFN to get in touch with them and we can take some takeaways from them as well. But what I'd like to start off this panel with, so, we saw SEVP recently, every month they're now releasing numbers on digital lending. Recently they released a very interesting number only for fintech-focused digital lenders. And what we saw was this number has actually reached 13 billion rupees over the last 2 years to 600,000 borrowers. That's a huge number, And we've not even seen that trajectory for the microfinance sector happening, which started back in 2000. And, we talk about microfinance, we see the branches banking rail that was started, the regulations that came in the early 2000s, that were really, brought in with the agenda of bringing in digitization. Fast forward about 2 decades, we see a lot going on in the digital lending space. I'd actually call this branches banking 2.0. And, for me, it's really interesting that someone who's actually an entity that's actually seen this wave throughout is, Mobilink Microfinance Bank. So Abubakr, to you, my question in particular, we've seen, Mobilink has it has a microfinance banking license. You've got a branches banking license. You guys have a telco on board. And now you guys are going for the digital banking license as well. So, you know, for the digital lending play, we've seen right now Mobilink actually in the overall numbers, you know, you guys, in terms of active borrowers on the microfinance space as well, it's about 27-28% of the market that you guys have. That's a huge number. Even in digital lending, we see Jazz Cash has really been, you know, stirring some numbers over there. So what is the digital lending strategy for you guys? Because there's so much happening. Do you even need a digital banking license? I would love to hear about that.
No, thanks for the question. मैं पहले फाद को कहूँगा चेक कर ले चाय पे अभी भी लोग बैठे हैं या आगे?
हाँ, क्योंकि
वो चाय इधर ही ले आएंगे.
I'm sorry guys
we
for
will
the
never
urgency.
be as important as tea, right?
That's,
so we should accept that.
My apologies. I have a flight to catch, so I'm actually really trying to be, you know, in time.
So I think thanks for setting the background. When digital lending was started, it started as a simple product. So it started as a ready cash product. In all honesty, it was that if someone needed 2,000 rupees, 3,000 rupees, and they wanted to use it for consumption purposes or other purposes, that they could get that lending facility on a touch of a button within a few minutes. The fact of the matter is that Pakistan mein banking over a period of time has evolved into कि treasury से पैसे कमाना है. जो असल मकसद था ना कि यार डिपॉजिट ले उन लोगों से और उधर लगाएं जहाँ पे फंडिंग की ज़रूरत है to grow the economy, that never really transpired. So the ready cash product was the first experiment because the regulator and the economy and the structures needed trust to see whether it works, whether we can actually do financing through a digital channel without having complete hell break loose. So alhamdulillah, that number has now grown quite significantly. We have a portfolio of about 4 billion rupees and about 4 million active customers. Going forward now, though, we see a big transformation. And you spoke about the digital lending strategy for us, and I'm very happy to share. ये आजकल कोई trade secrets तो होते नहीं हैं. So for us, I think our next wave of digital lending is our focus on the MSME segment. The micro entrepreneurs, giving loans that can actually help generate economic activity. We've signed deals with the likes of Food Panda where we're lending to Food Panda's home chefs. 70% उसकी Noreen ख़वातीन हैं who are sitting at home making fantastic food and selling it on Food Panda. And उनको जो financing की ज़रूरत होती है वो उनको कोई 2 साल का या 1 साल का digital loan नहीं चाहिए. They need a digital loan for a period of 10 days because their receipts are going to come after 10 days. They need working capital finance or invoice-based financing. So I think that focus on the micro entrepreneur is something that we've also, spoken to the regulator about. I think it will really help Pakistan grow. That's going to be a focus part of our strategy. I truly always say this, Noreen, that SME should stand for small medium emergency. Because in Pakistan, actually the total amount of credit that has gone to SMEs has dropped in absolute number. वो छोड़ दे परसेंटेजेस हम खेलते रहते हैं जीडीपी पे, वो एक्चुअली 500 बिलियन से गिर गया एसएमई को फंडिंग. क्यों? सबसे बड़ा बोरोवर आपका सरकार है, तो कोई क्यों टाइम लगाएगा टू अंडरस्टैंड द एसएमईज कैश फ्लो साइकिल्स. At the same time, it's a huge business opportunity. So for us, the next avenue for digital lending is productive loans, SME-based lending, and then there is a whole process around it. Very quickly to your second point as to whether we need a digital banking license or not. Yes, we are part of the process. However, at the same time, it's not the end-all and be-all. We will not be constrained by ये license मिलता है नहीं है to reach our aim. There are always other ways to do it. We are excited about the regulatory landscape. The digital banking license is almost a full commercial banking license with certain limitations on lending and deposit caps. But the branchless banking license affords us great opportunities as well. So if we get it, great. If not, you will still see us reaching 70% of the SMEs in just a few years.
I'm sorry, without being politically incorrect. So again, I see beyond group mein bahut changes aaye hain. We've actually worked with you guys very closely, and we see there's Jazz, which is the telco, and then there's the microfinance bank, and then there's Jazz Cash, which is the shared product of both of them, and telco at the back, of course, brings in a lot of texture to the digital lending space with the data, right? So although the balance sheet is yours, the data is still coming, or I'd say even the customer base is coming from the telco. So, how fair or unfair advantage you have, and the other challenge is that once that other entity is created, how does internal politics actually play into it?
Her organization, I was the chief digital officer for Telenor. I've partnered and worked a lot with Google, Meta. There is no organization that doesn't have politics. If someone says there's no politics in the organization, sare dozukhiyo. They're all liars. So that, I think, there is always organizational friction regardless of where you're working. The telco muscle gives us big distribution reach, but it doesn't only give us distribution reach for financial services. आज अगर पाकिस्तान में किसी ने सवाल पूछा था डिजिटल इंश्योरेंस आगे जा रहा है तो वो टेलकोस की वजह से जा रहा है बिकॉज बजाय कि कोई एक बंदा आके प्रीमियम पॉलिसी बेचता है आपके दफ्तर में आके आपको माइक्रो प्राइसिंग पे डेली वीकली मंथली ऑफर्स पे आपको लाइफ स्टॉक इंश्योरेंस हेल्थ इंश्योरेंस क्रॉप इंश्योरेंस एग्रीगेटर्स ऑफर कर रहे हैं थ्रू द टेलको आर्म because the fact of the matter is that Jazz has 75 million customers, Telenor has close to 50 million customers, and so on and so forth. So in terms of reaching the masses and accelerating that journey, a telco is actually a sector of sectors. ये तो हमारी पाकिस्तान में सोचा ना यार वॉइस और डेटा telco और डेटा की बेस पे तो आपकी डिजिटल इकोनॉमी बेस करती है. So I think yes, it is. I would definitely say it's a bigger advantage than a drawback. But in terms of changes at the group, yeah, we used to have a co-CEO model, which we don't. In Telenor, there used to be a group CDO model, which doesn't exist. That's life. That's how it is. But you take that, but overall, I think our ambition is to serve the underserved segment, चाहे वो digital banking license की shape में, चाहे वो branchless banking की shape में. But I would actually say to a lot of the fintechs and startups, that reaching masses of Pakistan, yes, you can do so in your own time and you can do so over a period of time. But a telco distribution partnership or any partnership that gives you scale is always a good route to adopt.
Lovely, absolutely. And actually building upon what you just said, you talk about partnerships and you talk about SMEs as well. I'd like to come to you, Kamran. Finja has been focus has been SME lending. And we see a digital play, but also a hybrid play there. We've seen that lending to SMEs is not as easy, one, because of their own innate challenges, but also regulatory challenges also exist. For example, as simple as KYC, आपको initial onboarding requirements पूरी करनी पड़ती हैं for SMEs. It's within the regulation, there's so much more required as opposed to an individual. और वो कई दफ़ा तो वो होता भी नहीं है ना for an SME. So, would love to hear from Finja's perspective, what have those challenges been for you? How have you catered to them? And अगर नहीं किए तो what is required, for it?
So, I'll give perspective in terms of Finja's, context in terms of Finja's journey initially. And Finja, when we started off, we wanted to be a digital payments platform up to about 5 years back. But we soon realized that there was a high degree of requirements to get an SME to digitize itself, or we coined a phrase which said digitize your enterprise. The idea was that how do you hook that SME on, because there was a dearth or a lack of capital that SME actually needed to make payments. So we came up with a philosophy that if using our portal, if an SME is transacting digitally, then we can use that data of digital payments and subsequent collections to actually use our credit algorithms to score better and allocate an evergreen credit line to that SME, so that we've already done the KYC in terms of bringing them on board and having their setup done on the portal itself, and subsequently using their transaction data to score them better. Because again, yes, that was a big challenge, that most of the SMEs did not have audited financial statements. Most of the SMEs did not have any financial statements for that fact, not even management accounts. So those transactions allowed the system to automatically create a cash flow summary at the back end, requiring, which was a primary requisite of our credit engine, to score them better and hence allocate a small evergreen credit line, which upon usage, utilization and repayment kept increasing. And the benefit went to the SME, because at the end of the day, they then got hooked on to digital payments. And this is how we sort of transitioned from not just leading from payments to lending, but also having lending as a hook to have the companies start using the digital channels for payments as well. That was one element. The second element was focusing specifically in the FMCG supply chain. There are distributors, there are wholesalers, obviously there are structured distributors and there are unstructured wholesalers. Karachi, there's Jodia Bazaar as a wholesaler market. Lahore, there's Shalmi, Akbari Mandi as a wholesaler market. Again, these guys had various issues. Challenges were that A, they were below the tax net. They didn't want to be visible to tax authorities. Second challenge was that they didn't have access to any formal financial credit. But they were procuring stock. They were procuring stock from conventional distributors. They were procuring stock from the metros and the hyperstars that already exist, which are the structured wholesaler segments. So again, getting data from where they're buying allowed us to actually score them better, and that just gave us much more comfort in extending credit lines to them with the assurance that they're repaying in a timely manner. And the funny thing is that we have done consumption lending or consumer lending before, and to Abubakar's point, the idea has always been to remain productive. Never to give out cash loans. Always give purpose-built credit lines that are adding value to another business in terms of productivity. And you know, drawing a quick comparison between consumption lending or consumer lending in terms of NPLs and then looking at productive lending, you know, the NPLs are less than 0.5%, which is phenomenal. So even though it's offline, even though it's unstructured, and we're doing our bit to bring them online as much as we can, the NPLs itself support our thesis to stick to B2B lending altogether.
Well, thank you. That's really interesting. You know, that in a way challenges why we started Tez, you know. Because we started Tez and we did cash lending to all consumers from all segments. And we learned a lot along the way, but the problem right now is that consumers ko is waqt koi serve openly. There are lenders who are doing it, and I'm going to come to one of them. But consumers ke liye bhi space, you know, bahut restricted hai because of course you need financial muscle for it. Bigger players have to take on that risk appetite. And we have players, you know, like SEEDcreed who've actually come into this space. And, you know, while it's not easy, unit economics, you know, we've been having this conversation, Abrar sahab. Unit economics actually overall for digital lending are not easy. You know, for a lot of people, I think I'm going to take this stage to actually share this because it's important. You know, kuch mahine pehle, there was a LinkedIn post by a very, you know, respected individual in the industry who talked about, you know, digital lending, primarily nano lending side, you know, predatory lending ho rahi hai bahut. We saw an influx of barring, you know, a lot of lenders. Well, I'd say I wouldn't want to just be, there were a lot of Chinese lenders who came in, जो license के बगैर आए, and then predatory pricing charge कर रहे थे, and then of course they came to the knowledge of the public. Now problem ये है कि एक तो unregulated space है, दूसरी चीज़ ये है कि जब unit economics देखे जाते हैं, एक nano lender के for example, so there are four, you know, areas that come into play when you're talking about you know, the pricing. एक आपका होता है, you know, the cost of funding. This can vary anywhere between K plus 4, 5, whatever that could be. ये हो गया तकरीबन आप कह लें, you know, for a monthly loan it would be something like 1.5%. Then there would be something like आपकी cost of operations है. आपका फिर इसमें आ जाता है एक margin आता है जिसको मैं साइड पे रख रही हूँ इस वक्त. सबसे बड़ा cost आता है deferred का for cash loans. Now problem ये है कि अभी इस particular post के ऊपर SECP actually was, you know, they actually got, you know, their interest actually rose because SECP को target किया गया कि आप कैसे encourage कर सकते हैं ऐसे lenders को. Now, unfortunately, of course, SECP has a role to play, but that burden came on to regulated, you know, lenders who were actually doing their jobs, all of us included here. जिस पे pricing cap की बात होनी शुरू हो गई है, which is actually something that is very scary, particularly for a sector that's only started. Abrar, it's up to you. You know, this is something that could hurt someone like SEEDcreed a lot. What is your view on, you know, this discussion that is happening with the SECP on pricing caps? And आपके ख्याल से, what is the next, you know, the next step forward? And I'm sorry, I'm just going to ask about one more thing. हम जब pricing caps की बात करते हैं, responsible pricing बड़ी ज़रूरी चीज़ है. Just being very, very conscious about the fact about the pricing of SEEDcreed as well आप लोग समझते हैं आपकी pricing responsible है. So, you know, all of that in
Okay, thank you. Very pertinent questions. I'm glad, I'm thankful to you that you've raised this question, because I think this forum will probably provide us with a better opportunity of explaining what we are doing and why we are doing the way we are doing it. First of all, there's a difference that I need to sort of dwell on. The difference between a microfinance bank lending small loans or nano loans to the public versus a company like us. The primary difference is that the microfinance banks have the luxury or the privilege of raising deposit from the public and then lending it. We are using our own money to lend. And the money often has come into Pakistan in the form of direct foreign investment in hard currency. So whenever somebody wants to calculate the pricing, he or they have to take into account the very fact that the devaluation of the Pakistani rupee against the dollars that were brought in weighs very heavily on the cost and the pricing of the enterprise. For instance, again, no trade secrets, when we received the seed money in our company, the dollar was being sold at 160 rupees, and now it's over 220 rupees. So we have taken that hit. We had to take that hit. But, you know, we cannot erode our entire capital or equity because of that. We have to put it back into the pricing factor. So that's number one. Then, whenever somebody invests in Pakistan, they expect a decent return on equity as well. So that return on equity has also to be incorporated in that. Then the risk of default, then the cost of operations, then Nadra, then Tasdeeq and Verisis, and all the services that we provide to the customers. Then the call center operations, then the IT operations. There are so many costs that are now associated with it. So the point to note is that despite all these costs that go into the pricing of our nano loans, the percentage is the same as that of a microfinance bank. The difference to note, however, is, and we are taking great pains to explain it to the regulator, which is the SEVP, and now I think there's a realization coming in slowly, gradually, and I know it's a gradual process, it won't happen overnight. The thing is that you cannot measure or determine our pricing in the similar parameter as that of a bank or a microfinance bank, because we lend only for extremely short period of time. The average lending tenure for our loan is between 10 days to 30 days. In my case, our case, the average tenure is 32 days. Okay? So whatever percentage we earn ends with the termination of the loan. It cannot be translated, should not be translated into an annualized percentage rate. That's the key issue. So for instance, if our pricing is 26%, it's 26% fixed for that particular loan when it ends. So you cannot assume that it is 550% because it's, when you take it to an annualized basis, it becomes that. It cannot be, because whenever somebody repays the loan, for him, the tenure of the loan ends, and he used that money, our money, for X number of days, and paid back the return at 26%. So that's a market rate. The other factor which is very important to note is that whenever the word predatory lending is concerned, or taken, or bandied about, we have prepared a list of 25 companies in Pakistan that are operating illegally and providing these nano lending platforms. Most of them are operating out of a house somewhere, using 2 laptops, having 3 accounts. I won't name the sources of the accounts, but they are mainstream accounts. So how would somebody know, how would a borrower know that the money is not being channeled through an approved payment channel? So we had a very constructive discussion with SECP, also with FIA, and now we are also going to have a discussion with PTA on this, and we are going to request them to support us, the legal entities, into restricting the access of people to these fraudulent companies, because they are not only bringing a bad name to us, but they're also causing disproportionately high number of illegal practices in the market, which is where the term predatory lending can actually be affixed to. So I hope I have been able to answer some of the major components of your question.
Thank you. You definitely answered my concern about the responsible pricing element, but we'll come back to what you really require of the SECP. We'll come back to that shortly. Omar, it's up to you. Tasdeeq has been making some strides in the recent past. Now, the credit bureau itself is a very, very important body when it comes to digital lending. When we started lending, 2018 when we gave out the first loan, people didn't know about a credit bureau. The majority in Pakistan doesn't know what a credit bureau is. But when there's been like mass nano lending with players like Jazz Cash and SEEDcreed, what's happened now is that since more people are coming into this ecosystem, credit bureau ki awareness बढ़ रही है, and the need to repay on time. That's something now people are actually looking into. A lot of people now come back to us, our defaulters, saying, हमने repay कर दिया है, NOC please दे दीजिए. Credit bureau से नाम हटाना है, Now, for you, my question is, how important is the credit bureau in the digital lending ecosystem? And other than just providing, credit inquiry services, what all is Tasdeeq looking into? And I'm just going to add on, we've got multiple regional players coming into, people like Qarar, who are themselves owned by credit bureaus, like the Saudi Credit Bureau, SEMA, they're actually doing a lot of work here, looking into data analytics tools. We also know Tasdeeq is looking into it. So are players like these also somewhat partners to you? Are they competition? What all are you thinking about?
Noreen, we take pride in calling ourselves as the infrastructure for the digital lenders. And I'm proud to say that 4 of our customers are already sitting here. So you are absolutely correct. Credit bureau plays a very important role in digital lending. What are the 3 main pain points for digital lending? Ek to cost reduction, turnaround time, reduction in turnaround time, and getting a reliable and effective credit evaluation. These 3 things we provide because we are a repository of data, and we are the experts who can manage and provide analytics on that data. Till now, there have been a lot of challenges for us in comparison to how the international market operates. We started operations in 2018, and then it was a challenge in terms of collection of data. It took us 2.5 years and even after the fact that the lending institutions were bound to provide data to us under the Credit Bureau Act and State Bank regulations, but nobody would. There was a distrust. You asked me to be blunt, so there was a distrust that what will be the security of that data. But eventually we were able to convince everybody, and now 120 institutions are reporting data on a monthly basis to us, and they are using the services. So we started with the basic service, which was the credit information report, which we started providing, and then focused on the B2B business, which was providing credit information to the lending institutions. And eventually, over a period of time, the awareness, as borrowing increased, as lending increased, the awareness started increasing. So we have started coming up with new innovative products also, which is basically starting off with scoring models. We have a wealth of data available. We have got data available for 21 million borrowers in Pakistan. We have got their demographics. We know exactly what their lending behaviors are. And based on that, and this data is based on the data which we acquire from commercial banks, from microfinance banks, microfinance institutions, NBFCs, non-bank finance companies, fintechs, buy now pay later companies. All that wealth of data comes to us. Based on this data, we have developed a lot of scoring models which are applicable to the digital lenders in terms of reducing their costs, or reducing their turnaround time, and doing a credit evaluation. Like the challenge which still comes in right now is that every digital institution also collects their own data, and they believe that based on the data which they have collected, they can develop great models and do a lot of things on them. But what I advise them to do is that focus on your core business. Developing credit scoring models is not your job. Share that data with us as per regulations, as per the Act. Correlate that data with the bigger data set that we have of the industry, and let us build those scoring models and those analytics for you, which can help you in terms of managing your business more efficiently.
Oh, that's actually very exciting and refreshing to hear, but problem here is it's unfortunate that we talk about collaboration, but we never come to execution, and that is a challenge because each one of us actually for the longest time has wanted to do everything ourselves, and please.
Coming to your second question, with regards to companies like Credible or Kara coming in, who have been a bureau also and have established, we don't look at them as competition. We look at them as partners. In fact, we are talking to a lot of them in terms of integration into their system, because our strength is our database that we have. Their strength is their scoring models and the platforms that they have built and which they are selling. We don't want to be a competitor to them. We want to be a partner to them in terms of integrating our services into their platforms and providing support wherever they require.
आपने एक जो बहुत important बात की वो ये कि you guys are an enabler.
Exactly.
And I think we need to understand within the digital lending space as well, there's so many facets to it. Everyone can't do everything, right? And this is where enablers like yourself, Nilofer, EFU comes into play. And this hasn't been only now, when the digital lending excitement came through. It's been, since eternity. Microfinance in particular, we've seen, credit life insurance being embedded into the products. But, my question is, insurance itself is a very difficult product to sell, And we've had an experience, unfortunately, जब actually successful होती है ना insurance, which is claims जब आने शुरू होते हैं, तो insurance companies पीछे हट जाती हैं. Now, credit insurance जैसी चीज़ है वैसे ही अगर इस level पे आए जैसे Jazz Cash, Finja, and SEVP कर रहे हैं, that would be, you need a lot of appetite to bear such losses. So, an insurance company like yourself, what are the interesting or exciting insurance products that you guys are developing for the digital lending space?
Assalamu alaikum everyone. Thank you Noreen for that question. So before coming to your question, I know you have to rush for airport, but I'll take a minute to just give a perspective to everyone. I know when I was coming to this panel, I had this question in mind that people will think, why is an insurance company representing a digital lending panel? Or I think Noreen gave a good perspective, and I was absolutely happy when Abubakr mentioned about insurance in a panel. So how do we view digital lending? First, I'll give you my personal perspective about it. So whenever I see around, I think lending is a need of the hour. किसको आजकल पैसों की ज़रूरत नहीं है. हर फॉर्म में everyone is individually approaching everyone else for lending. They could be people who are associated with us, like our drivers, our maids. They need money. A step beyond, if we go, our colleagues, maybe they don't say it, but they want something instantly. They want lending. We go to banks, they lend. We go to microfinance institutions, they lend. Committee, आप बहुत सारे लोगों से पूछें आपने क्यों ली है, तो मुझे अभी immediate जो है ना, I want the TV, I want the fridge, so I want money for it. So they are lending. In an insurance company, in an insurance policy, people do surrender the policies. People want partial withdrawals because people want money. So need is absolutely there. So we at EFU Life have realized that need, कि this is a segment. So again, for years we have been operating, I think सबको idea होगा, but our penetration is less than 1%. So what we have realized at EFU Life in recent past is that reaching to the customers directly is not possible. आप चाहोगे, you will do that for middle income and above. Your brick and mortar will serve, your partnerships will serve. But जब आप middle income and below की बात कर रहे हैं, तो it will only be successful when you partner with ecosystems. And giving you the perspective and now connecting with it is like this digital lending space is growing. We know that there is a need for it. So we want to partner with this segment. We want to partner. Credit life एक चीज़ है, microfinance institutions में और banks में. This is not something new. This has been there for ages now. But still, if you ask me a very honest question, I would say वो ज़्यादा आपके institution को protect करती है and not the person himself. So yeah, the loan repay हो जाता है and no doubt एक burden, एक bada burden on the family gets releases. But again, you have to have something that above the credit life that is for the family, that helps the person when he needs it the most. And you are absolutely right, Noreen. Jo main, I call it ki selling point hi insurance ka claims hai. So and what we have learned about this mass market, I know my friends here in the digital lending space are also facing कि हम दो चीज़ों की बात करें. We are saying we'll reach to the masses and we are saying we'll do that digitally. मगर एक बहुत important चीज़ है कि शायद वो जो digital audience है, बहुत हद तक वो जो digital financial audience है वो masses नहीं है. They are not the masses. So to reach to them, you have to speak their language. In claims also, what we have done, I'll give you just one example. What we have done is that we have onboarded claim coordinators. और जब वो किया तब हमें रियलाइज़ हुआ कि ये तो वो लोग हैं जिनको अंग्रेज़ी तो बहुत दूर की बात, उर्दू भी शायद ही समझ आती हो. So we then realized कि no, this market is very different. उनको कहा आप कोरियर कर दें, and then we realized कि नहीं कोरियर कैसे करेंगे, they don't have reach. फिर WhatsApp पे claims लेने start किए, started speaking in their language, making their lives easier. So what we have realized as insurance company, if we have to succeed, we have to embed in your ecosystems. We have to make insurance products the way you like it. We can't operate our way.
Well, thank you so much. And we've seen EFU is coming up with a lot of innovative products, exciting stuff there. So I just like to actually start sealing this panel with something that's some takeaways actually. And what I'd like each one of you is to give one thing that you can give to the industry. It could be, any participant. It could be a partner. It could be a regulator, anyone. One thing that you can give and one thing that you need. But please name the player. And to make it a little more challenging, each one of you has to come up with a different answer. And yeah, so let's.
Whoever is first has the easiest one.
So, like we're talking about digital lending, I think one key element that was discussed shortly as well is about embedded finance. And that from a lending perspective, a digital lending perspective is super important because the easiest element of scalability is by embedding your lending engine or credit algorithm into a partner institution's application. So that is something that we, from a lending perspective, on behalf of the entire panel here, would seek out in terms of partnerships, in terms of acceptability. Not having that, that little scare of being competitive or data leaks and all of that. It's about trust at the end of the day, and we heard about it throughout the day as well, that partnerships are all thriving on trust. So embedded finance is something that we want to sort of give out to all the partner institutions that are there in their respective fields, and not having to sort of cannibalize on their work. One thing that I think from an NBFC perspective that we would like to have from the regulator is, again, I think KIST pages brought it up earlier in the discussion as well, is our APIs for NADRA verifications.
From NADRA?
Not just NADRA actually, we would ideally want to have all government institutions giving out APIs and not treating NBFCs as, below state bank regulated entities or banks. Because I think that's a very unfair advantage, and you're not letting an NBFC grow, and then you talk about pricing caps, and then the cost of acquisition or the cost of KYC is so high, and then you want us to worry about the pricing also. It becomes a bit tricky. So one thing that we would want from the regulator, one thing we would want from both the regulators is equality in terms of API sharings. Again, not just from NADRA but from FBR as well. One thing that we've also realized is that although we're working with Tasdeeq and DataCheck both in terms of reporting of loans, but banks are still reviewing the ECIB. And on ECIB, DataCheck and Tasdeeq details are not being shown. So that level of integration where the bank also has visibility that ABC borrower has borrowed and is being reported on Tasdeeq or is being reported on DataCheck needs to be there for the bank also. So that level of uniformity needs to be very much there. That is something that we need from the regulators and the government at large.
Lovely. So, by the way, ये give जो थी ना थोड़ा सा cheap था because you're actually asking, but I'll give it to you nonetheless. Okay, from you.
देखिए आपने जिक्र किया था pricing caps के हवाले से.
जी.
So I think it will be very unfair for any regulator to put a pricing cap on the market-based factors. Just like the credit card several years ago when the banks had launched the credit cards. I used to be in Bank al-Flah then, and I know that Bank al-Flah literally swamped the credit card market back then. The market has to settle in, and it has to find its own equilibrium. The dynamics of the market forces have to come into play. Yes, the SECP's role can be there in the form of a watchdog, that unfair business practices are not being incorporated in the working of any organization. But as far as the pricing cap is concerned, it will be contradictory, it will be debilitating for the business to grow, any business to grow, because today we are 2 NBFCs in the lending area, tomorrow more will grow. So if the pricing cap stick is there, the new companies will find it disadvantageous to enter the market and compete with us on equal footing. Thank you.
And something that you can give to the sector, something that you can, that's a take. What would you want to give to the sector? Well, that's the same as embedded finance.
Just to educate the public about it, you know, we have the giveaway from our side in the market during the last 1 year has been that we have serviced 2 million borrowers in Pakistan. And out of these 2 million, 1.5 million were those customers who had never ever borrowed, and they were not there in the Tasdeeq data bank. So we have actually helped document the economy, and we have disbursed 20 billion rupees of these nano loans in the last 1 year. So it's a huge contribution that we are doing to, not just that, we employ 1,000 people. So just imagine the payroll that we are, you know, giving away, and that income is going to those households where there was no income before this. So this is
Thank you.
We basically are...
If I would just urge you to be very brief, if you could. One give, one take.
We are a data company, we live and breathe data. So we need data.
Data.
Please share data with us. It will help financial inclusion. It will help poverty alleviation. It will help
Poverty alleviation. That's a good one.
Exactly. And what we need and what we can give is ask us anything. Analytics, AI, machine learning based models.
We want the data as well. Will you give that?
Anything that you want out of this data, we are the experts.
One small point, if I may, with your permission.
Of course.
You see, we are also very, very alive to the issue of gender equality. And everybody here will be thrilled to know that 58% of our workforce is female. So we are particularly helping the young ladies come into the work environment and become very, very productive members of the society.
Thank you.
Okay, so not directly pertaining to me, but from an insurance perspective, I can say what we can give is easy business models for you to embed your digital journey with. I don't know for what we can take, but I can request everyone here in the room, absolutely, I'm not talking to those who are in this panel, but to the audience in general, जो digital lending में जो Noreen ने example mention किया, I think that is a very important example. वो तब arise हुआ था जब हमने थोड़ा सा जो है वो human factor को aside कर दिया था when data was shared, because I heard a lot about data sharing. So this was an important point that I wanted to touch upon into this panel, that regulators का तब जो है ना थोड़े से uncomfortable होते हैं when the data is shared but it is not used in a proper manner. So these masses, because working directly in this segment, these people need your hand holding. Maybe agar they are not able to repay that in time, there could be a genuine reason and not necessarily a default. So I would request the sector in general, and taking an advantage of being a devil's advocate, that thing that you are serving a human that is sitting right there who is in need of that instant credit. Thank you.
Thank you, Nilofer.
Yeah, I would say that in terms of giving, our commitment, as I said, our 2023 strategy, I'm saying it out loud, is to digitally serve and lend to the micro SME segment. ये जो small medium emergency है, अगर आपके ecosystem में micro entrepreneurs हैं, जिनको 10 दिन के लिए कर्जा चाहिए, जिनके पास invoice है, cash नहीं आया, ज़रूरी नहीं है कि बड़ी रकम हो, अक्सर लोगों के पास एक short term cash flow की need होती है that can get them by and actually help their businesses We want to serve that. Uski credit scoring ki fikr na kare, wo hum pe chhod dein. We want to serve the micro SME segment. That's what I pledge to give. In terms of taking, it may sound a little stereotypical, but it's also a commitment from the audience and something I also commit to. In our circle of influence, we're not the Prime Minister of Pakistan, we're not the UN Secretary General, but in our circle of influence, in our homes, in our domestic help, there is need for savings products. There is need for insurance. There is need to giving them digital literacy skills and training. Let's take that commitment. It may sound stereotypical, but I swear to you, if in our circle of influence, in the help that we have in our households, in our offices, if we can get the micro insurance, or help them to save digitally, help them to get a cheap loan if they need it, help them to have digital literacy, I think we will take Pakistan forward. I truly mean that.
Amazing, thank you. So I'd actually like to summarize that. Very interesting चीज़ ये है कि जो सारे gifts थे ना वो सारे अपने products से ज़्यादातर. You know, the interesting take was from Abrar sahab actually, but it actually comes down to this, you know, when partnerships में होता ये है कि it can't be just one entity taking, you know, it has to be beneficial for everyone in the industry that can benefit from it. I think we probably need a bit of a mindset shift. You know, take me, I think they were really interesting, you know, requirements that we always talk about. But I think in the best interest, in the best spirit of actually giving, you know, we were actually having this conversation internally within our team. You know, Tez ने अपना actually पिछले कुछ सालों में काफ़ी lending की, हमने काफ़ी data भी है हमारे पास, and I don't know, we have to see कि वो कितना हम इसको technically correct करेंगे, but we are actually thinking of making that data available anonymously to players who lenders or who can actually use that data to build services upon. We'll have to figure out that, you know, that the structure of that partnership. And we invite, you know, people to come to us if that's something that is of interest to them. And that's something that we're willing to give to the industry. We're, you know, willing to help what our learnings have been. So I think that's where I can start give from. So yeah, I think that's where I would like to close this session today. It has been very exciting. Thank you so much, everyone, for being so candid. I would actually also like to urge Fahad and Dr. Zima, you know, maybe we need to start, maybe a thread of conversations with all the other lending players, digital lending players in the industry who are not present here. There's some great players doing some great work. Their voices need to be heard. So maybe we can start that chain where we can ask them of what their requirements are and maybe have, you know, a session where we can actually take this to the regulators or the players concerned. Because I think बहुत बातें हो गया planning की, now it's time for execution actually. So let's try to do that. So I'll just open the floor to 2 questions. I'm sorry guys, I'm just getting late for my flight, so I'll try to keep it short. 2 questions. Yes. Afan?
Right, so my name is Mohammad Afan, I'm a journalist. I just have a question to the whole panel. Is that Sharia compliance, is that the biggest challenge in credit lending and insurance?
It's the biggest opportunity. जो 75% पाकिस्तान अभी unbanked नहीं है ना, उसमें से 61% कहता है कि हम उस वक्त आएंगे when you have Sharia compliant offers. So why would a fintech, why would a bank, why would any NBFC player not want to offer that service? Other than being the right thing to do, customers need it. वो जो पहला वाला panel था, they were saying what's the problem to be solved. It's a huge opportunity. वैसे ही State Bank कह रहा है यार 2025 तक कुछ खुद ही कर लो तुम लोग यार, you know, get to it. I think if we can do this the right way and then digitize this journey, the people, the companies that are able to capture the trust of the customers, I think they will be world beaters. The reason is, customers now, you know this better, उनको transactional relationship नहीं पसंद. आपको personalized में भी transactional relationship नहीं पसंद, क्योंकि वो लेन देन का relationship है. You want a relationship of a trust around the ecosystem. You know that the company is going to serve your needs and interests. So I think it's a huge opportunity. We ourselves as Mobilink Bank, you will soon see certain product launches and verticals around this. And I hope the more the merrier. Everyone should get into this, but do it right. Do it with customer trust in mind.
So I would answer with regards to insurance. So 7 years down the road, conventional insurance companies, including EFU Life, took license for takaful. And we thought that it will not exceed 10%, 20% of our total customer base. And as we speak, we are around 50%. And to some channels, we are around 60-65%. So you can absolutely see that there is a need of Islamic products. It also, for us, we see it in small tickets that it also cancels one of your observations of why not to buy insurance. So yes, Takaful is serving the population, and it's answering to many questions that were previously unsolved.
So on Sharia, we initially saw this as a growing problem towards the tier 2 and tier 3 cities in particular, not just tier 1 when we were doing productive lending or business lending. And we reached out to one of, a very well-known Sharia consultant who is also now an independent director on our board. And he explained to us very well, and he explained it in a sense, and he gave a fatwa against it as well, that when you're doing purpose-built stock financing, that entire process is Sharia compliant end-to-end, because you're actually supporting a small business or a small entrepreneur in terms of their productivity in their business. So when you can structure the process, or you can build the best kind of a process flow, which at every essence is adding value to, what we were discussing earlier as well, when you become a net giver to the respective borrower, then automatically that entire process just becomes more on the Islamic angle as well. And the minute the borrower understands that, they no longer question whether you have a Sharia certificate or whether you're Islamic or un-Islamic. When you take out the word loan and you facilitate it in terms of, or you interchange it in terms of a facilitator, that just changes the entire dynamics of the role. But that's again a mindset, that's the philosophy that each entity would have in terms of digital credit.
Could we please hand over the mic to that gentleman, please?
My name is N. I was just listening to the argument when Ms. Nilofer started that credit, तो अब हर कोई मांग रहा है. So we started the payment industry like this. हमने उसको एक demographics के गेम की तरह देखा कि हमारे पास 220 मिलियन की पॉपुलेशन है, 170 मिलियन जो है हमारे पास टेक को यूज़ करती है. हम कितने लोगों को दे सकते हैं, कितने लोग 30 साल से नीचे हैं. तो अगर हम लेंडिंग को भी इसी तरह मतलब perceive करते हैं और इसी तरह अभी trying to start payments the way we did, lending the way we did payments. So won't that be a bigger risk considering we got the nano lending players who can also comment on the NPAs which they've gathered from different sort of lending. Abubakr साहब ने बात की है SME lending की, which is more safer than what Abrar company was doing, which was nano lending, consumer lending. तो ये कितना बड़ा रिस्क होगा कि हर कंपनी लैंड करना चाह रही है और एक दूसरे से आप इंटीग्रेटेड हैं नहीं और आपको पता ही नहीं है कि किस कंपनी ने कितना पैसा किसको दिया हुआ है. तो it's like handing the, I'm not getting the right word.
That's a good question, and if I may summarize, what you're really saying is it's a risky business. Lending is a risky business. Can it be democratized the way payments is being, despite the fact that it's so risky? And I would just like to correct your misperception. सबको पता होता है कि किसको कितना पैसा दिया है. That's why credit bureaus exist. So that is happening for nano lending as well. But as for the other fact, anyone to answer कि lending को democratize करना कितना आसान होगा? Anyone wants to take that?
Yeah. I will hazard an answer on that. You see, I think Abubakr was talking about in the morning is the educating the masses is the key. So education and then the availability of the trust of the masses in what you're offering and what you're proposing to offer, that holds the key. So in our country, you see there are some barriers, psychological barriers, cultural barriers, societal barriers to borrowing. In a typical rural environment or a patriarchal society, it is not considered good if you have a loan on your head. It's a society thing that we have in Pakistan. So to inculcate or to give out a message that borrowing is not bad as long as you intend to repay it. But it is bad definitely for the lender if you don't repay it. So the message has to be very clearly driven out that there is no harm in borrowing money, as our colleague just mentioned. But the real thing is to be able to repay. So unless and until you don't have the capacity to pay, please don't borrow. This is the message.
Another thing is, the institutions know because of the credit bureau where they have taken loans and what kind of behavior they have with those institutions. Credit bureau इसमें एक और तरीके से help कर सकती हैं in terms of risk-based pricing. Customers who have a bad risk profile can be priced at a high rate, and who have a better risk profile can be priced at a lower rate. This kind of pricing has not yet been done by any institution, but going forward, this can help mitigate the concerns that we have.
Thank you. Yes, one last question, please. Go ahead. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Kashif. I'm from Mitsubishi. So I see that fintech industry has been growing with a lot of opportunities. But of course, with opportunities comes a lot of threats as well. So my question is with respect to the insurance company. Of course, when you operate in a Pakistani market, where safety and security is the biggest concern, how do you cope up with that? I mean, theft, fire breakouts, it's quite common here. So how do you maintain the financial feasibility and the profits in such a situation? I mean, I'm still not clear because of course people are moving towards insurance a lot because because of the safety and security factor. And since insurance has become Sharia compliant as well, but this has become a challenge for insurance company as well because a lot of people have been claiming more often now. So how do you deal with the financial liquidity, profitability, and feasibility in that case? Thank you.
Look, see, your question is absolutely correct because there is a lot of risk that Pakistan is carrying. And one problem that we all face is, again, the lack of data, the lack of accurate data. So we don't, like other companies, we don't have so many databases which actually predicts, which actually has the historical data. But then what we also have is, what we all know is a huge population. We also know that the law of large numbers is what is relevant to insurance as well. So when you have a bigger pool, such a bigger pool of people contributing in it, and then you have to bear those losses, those large number works out. So when you penetrate into masses, when you get these numbers through telcos, through huge number of digital lending institutions, then you have the capacity and you have the capability of paying claims. And everybody here, most of you might think that this is a loss-making proposition. When we entered into the proposition, we were all very, very rapidly said that you will end up in a loss-making. But it's not a loss-making. You have to do it right. You have to rely on the risk profiles, credit rating. But more than that, it's the law of large numbers. If people come in, if you have those masses, you can deliver the right product. You have to iterate, you have to change, you have to add benefits, relate benefits, and aware your customers.
Well, thank you so much. Thank you so much to all the panelists. You guys have been super candid, sharing some great insights. And to all of you in the audience, I think it's important to understand lending is not an easy space to be in. It's an art, a science. It requires a huge heart, and a lot goes into it. So kudos to all those who actually dare to lend in a country like Pakistan in particular. But then also, if players like them do not get it, who do not do it, then who will? So I think we need more and more players to get into it. You have a population of over 100 million who actually are people who can get access to lending, but still only about 4% of the population has access to lending. So yeah, I think this is an opportunity for us, and all these players are doing a great job. But then a lot has to be done. So thank you to all of you. Thank you to the audience. We'll call that a wrap.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Noreen. That was a really nicely moderated session and wonderful insights from all our panelists. And yes, we must dare to lend and leverage partnerships and do it well, because this is an essential need. for our country to spur economic growth and catalyze economic prosperity. We are now reaching the last of our panels for the day. So thank you for staying with us. A big hand to the audience because they have been around. So let's clap ourselves for being here. It takes a lot in today's world to stay in one room for a full day, where we have so many demands on our time and distractions. I think what we have ahead is actually a very fascinating conversation. I hope this is also going to keep us active. And if not, as I said earlier, please be ready to do your shoulder stand. So let's now invite Habib Saqib, Head of Fintech-Fasalpay, who will now be leading our discussion on Agritech in Pakistan, innovation and challenges. Let me share with you briefly about Habib. Habib is the founder of Fasalpay, Pakistan's first agri-fintech, aiming to increase farmers' profits through improved access to affordable agri-credit products and services. Before Fasalpay, he launched Khushhal Zamindar at Telenor, Pakistan's first digital agri-advisory service, scaling it to over 8 million users. Habib, thank you so much for being with us. Please join us here and invite your fellow panelists. Thank you.
Assalamu alaikum everyone. So definitely PFN has kept the best for the last, and it is my pleasure to invite the panelists for this session. Mr. Fuad Khan, Chief Data and Strategy Officer, Bakhabar, a veteran of IT and telecom sector in Pakistan and abroad. He was part of the founding team of GIK Institute, developed deep understanding of Agritech, working for Fatma Group as Chief Information Technology Officer. And since leaving Fatma Group, he has been associated with Bakhabar, which is one of the leading digital Agritech firms serving over 5 million monthly active users with their digital contextualized advisories. My second panelist for today is Mr. Muzaffar Mangi, who is the co-founder of a very promising Agritech startup called Farmdar. They use remote sensing and artificial intelligence to create marketing solutions and also provide remote reporting on crops. And the next on my list is Mr. Arsalan Khan, Vice President and Country Head, MasterCard Pakistan. He brings with him extensive leadership experience in emerging and mature markets, has worked for telcos and digital financial services, driving market growth and customer acquisition. He has been leading startups, turnarounds, and merger integrations. Before joining MasterCard, he was the Chief Commercial Officer at Bakhabar. So it'll be interesting to discuss what he has been seeing on both sides of the fence. And then we have Fatma Zaka, who's the founder of The Farmet, an experienced professional who turned a hobby into a startup. She's worked for over 10 years in various sectors and is currently working to close the gaps in agribusiness, especially for capable women growers and smallholder farmers. And they aim to be a portal for women in this industry to thrive. And last but not the least is Mr. Faisal Bilal, founder and CEO GrowTech. Is Faisal here? I think, yeah, he's here. Faisal is also a telecom expert with over 15 years of experience in using telecom and technology to address fundamental challenges. His firm provides numerous technology systems, helping the farmers grow more and grow better. And we are missing one of our panelists today, so Mr. Zeeshan Baig, the country head Sygenta. He had a family health challenge due to which he had to leave. We wish his family well. So let me start. So we're going to start with you for WhatsApp. So agriculture, as we know, has been the least digitized sector in terms of industries, not just in Pakistan, but globally. And I remember Bakhabar started off with a very simple advisory service, and now you're moving towards more of digitized services, remote sensing, and you're also trying to add more functionalities and features to your app. So just tell us a little bit about the challenges in helping farmers move from a relatively simpler feature phone-based kind of services to more digital services?
Sure. Can you...
Just tap it and see.
No, it's okay. It's working. Yeah.
Okay. Good.
Okay. So, okay, it's been a long journey at Bakhabar Kisan. We've been there for 6 years. Initially, our objective was to scale. And our focus was on traditional services using, IVR, using SMS, using a call center. So it was traditional services. Clearly, the sort of services that we can offer using an app are, way more than just the standard suite of services. Now, moving to an app has certain challenges. Some of these challenges I call lazy challenges. They relate to connectivity, affordability, and literacy. I'll hit a little bit upon each of these. Connectivity, you move off the motorway and signals get very spotty. So having an app out in the field is perhaps not the ideal solution. Smartphones over the last 1 year, they've become more expensive. That surely is a challenge. And literacy, digital literacy, that is a barrier. Because you see, the farmers that we work with are mostly smallholder farmers. Affordability for them is a big challenge, as well as literacy. The other thing, we had an app, way back in 2017. But as was mentioned by several speakers, any digital product has to be relevant, it has to be useful, it has to bring value to the customers. And we, I think, learned about it a little hard way. We have just recently completed a project with GSMA. They, took us through the process of design thinking workshops, usability testing, UX, UI design, product iteration, and that has allowed us to really, bring our app to a level where we now think we can take it to the farmers, and we are going to do that in a very concerted way, because we feel migrating the farmers to the digital platform, whether it happens today or over the next 3 years, is the way to go.
Thank you so much, and that really nicely places us to ask the question from one of the leading agri-techs in the country, Farmdar. So Muzaffar, how has the experience have been? So these guys kind of transitioned from a more traditional feature phone-based service to a more smartphone-based service and precision agriculture services. That has been your starting point. How has the journey been so far?
I just want to contextualize, the space we're all playing in. ये पहाड़ हिलाने वाली बात है. इधर कोई काम नहीं हुआ. फार्मर को पिछले 60-70 साल से नेग्लेक्ट किया है. हर फार्मर को कुछ 300 से 400 पेस्टिसाइड कंपनीज आके हर महीने मंजन बेचती हैं. कोई वाली वारिस नहीं रहा उसका, ना उसके कोई आउटलेट्स हैं, ना एजुकेशन है. Understand the beast that you're addressing first, right? So progress should not be measured how it would be by urban standards sitting on stages like this. Progress का context थोड़ा और है. मेरा पहला point ये होगा. दूसरा देखिए, there was a gentleman sitting here from Mobilink who was talking about trust in the ecosystem, right? We're going to a farmer essentially and saying that the way you've been doing things for a couple of 100 years, we're now suggesting a slightly different way of doing it. Is that farmer ready to try a new thing out? 100%. Every single farmer in Pakistan is. ये मैं खुद इस चीज़ की गवाही देता हूँ. But it's conditional. Because when you're asking him to try something new out, it comes with a risk, right? So trust in the ecosystem is really very, very important. It's like electric cars. आपको मैं 2.5 करोड़ रुपए दे दूँ वो बोलूँ कि आप जीप खरीदें, आपने जाके प्राडो खरीद लेनी है, आप e-tron नहीं खरीदेंगे. Why? Because it's just so brand new. I mean, you know, what are you going to do with it? How many people will buy it from you? It's just brand new. And trust in the ecosystem comes from value, right? If you're actually giving the farmer something that is truly of value, if you are gearing yourself to give it to them on a free model or a freemium model, if you're smart about targeting early adopters, there is absolutely no reason why people would not want to latch on to this. Farmers do want to know the weather. Farmers do want to know plant health, vulnerable areas, productivity zones. उनके मसले बड़े crystal clear हैं और unaddressed भी हैं. तो जब उनको एक solution provide दिया जा रहा है वो ज़रूर try करेंगे. But देखें इसकी ये एक तो long haul है, ये overnight नहीं होगा. और दूसरा ये जो value creation है ये ही आपका ecosystem एक trust create करेगी. So coming from that space, I feel that the progress is good. Internet connectivity is a real issue. I will slightly disagree on mobile phone prices. I was in Nawab Shah 2 weeks ago. I was in Khanewal yesterday. परचून की दुकान पे, not exaggerating, 3,000 रुपए का आपको चला हुआ स्मार्टफोन मिल जाता है. कैमरा अच्छा नहीं होगा, बैटरी अच्छी नहीं होगी, but it is a screen with a browser that allows you to connect to the internet. What are his motivations for buying that outside of YouTube and Facebook and just, you know, using WhatsApp? And connectivity plays a huge role in that. Whereas I feel the telcos have done a tremendous job in making sure, you know, we have such a high mobile phone penetration. Internet connection is spotty at best. And that really has a lot to do with what companies like us will be able to do for the farmer. And moreover, you know, what kind of financial technology is brought to them. Technology udhar hai, farmer ke paas, wo connect nahi kar pa raha. So thoda sa mixed bag hoga, I think is answer ke andar. I hope I've addressed your question.
You surely did, and I think that really helps me ask the next question from Arsalan, who has recently moved from, not too recently, but in the recent past, moved from Agritech to Fintech, or a financial services company. And, you know, we talk about the promise of the two working together, but still we don't see that happen a lot. So what Muzaffar is saying, that the farmer is ready to change his behavior, adopt new technologies. What are some of the barriers? What can we do to accelerate that adoption from a financial services perspective?
Okay, I think, first of all, thank you so much for inviting us to this session. I mean, from a MasterCard standpoint, we're extremely proud to be here. Thank you to Fuad and the PFN for holding this. Look, in terms of barriers, look, I will speak obviously more to financial inclusion and the financial services thing. We've all heard the numbers, right? The agri economy in Pakistan contributes what, 21 to 24% GDP, contributes to half of the direct idle workforce. Prior to the floods, I mean, we had double-digit growth in important crops, right? So Pakistan is 25% financially included, right? So there's a large segment of the market which is financially excluded, and it's rural, and that's where the agri segment appears in. So in terms of the agri, I would say the actors involved in the agri ecosystem, you've got the farmers, you've got the agri input dealers, you've got and obviously you've got what we call the mandi, right? The marketplace where everybody sells out to, right? This is a very informal system today. And we've discussed the role of the RTs as well. I think that when it comes to us being MasterCard, we have deployed something called the Farmers Network of Farm Pass. We've introduced this in a lot of emerging markets in Africa, also with a neighbor across in India. And working with different actors like Agritechs, financial institutions, FIs, government institutions as well, whereby we kind of plug in various actors into the ecosystem, right? We facilitate that. But I think the key barrier right now towards anything today is that it's an informal economy. It's an informal ecosystem. There is not enough, I would say, transparency or visibility. So the farmer's ability to set pricing or at least work with the market in terms of his own incomes is very limited. His access to, I would say, formal financial services or lending is extremely limited, right? And so the whole ecosystem is informal, right? So if you look at the farmers today, 8.1 million farms, right? Out of which 64% are small, right? And they're subsistence farmers. in terms of lending alone, if you look at the ADB numbers, 11% of the farms today are what we call large landowners, right? They get almost 70% of the lending, right? And the 64%, which are the small farmers, get less than 25%, right? Because it's a very informal thing. So I think the key barrier today is how do we make the more important actors of the ecosystem, meaning the agri-input dealers, which is a large chunk of the MSME, and the farmers financially included. But the thing is, it's not only about getting them included. You can give them a wallet, you can give them an account, but there needs to be a reason to use transactions, right? The history, the analytics isn't there, right? The second key barrier today basically is that agri is adversely affected by climate change and weather, right? So there's always a risk factor involved. And that's where companies like Bakhabar Kisan and FarmGuard come, because they provide advisory services. They provide the level of protection, right, to lenders as well. But our role from a MasterCard standpoint basically is that we'd like to enable the ecosystem. We'd like to work with our partners, right? And essentially, if we can manage to get even 20 or 30% of this cash-based ecosystem into the digital economy, I think that the whole government economy will just completely change, right?
Totally agreed. So coming to Fatma, we have talked about farmers in general. You work specifically with, most of the time, with smallholder farmers and especially women. So are they as much ready as perhaps the rest of the farmers to jump onto the digital transformation bandwagon? And what are some of the barriers or challenges that you see in terms of the ecosystem that are kind of decelerating that transformation?
Yes, we do essentially work with small to medium-sized farmers. Ideally speaking, the farmers should be very innovative, highly skilled, and data-driven. But we need to understand. Okay, so Arslan, the statistics that I have, so 70% of the farmers are working on small to medium-sized farms. The main problem is most of them do not own the lands. So the main problem is that they don't feel the incentive of, jumping onto innovative practices because, they don't feel the ownership. So that's one problem. And number two, in our experience, we keep, spending a lot of time with these small to medium-sized farmers because we have now started contract farming. They really, really want to, apply innovative practices. Most of them, out of the 70%, and much more than the large sized farmland owners. If you talk about the landlords, most of them are not even interested in farming. So they are not even interested in what's happening on their agri land. So these farmers are very, very much, ready. Another really big issue is that they don't have any incentive in terms of investments in their innovative ideas and practices. Whatever these government and semi-government organizations are offering, most of it is going to the influential lot. Those farmers who are not even really interested. So these two are the really big problems that we have witnessed and experienced. So I think this is something that the government bodies and the financial institutions, they need to really look into.
Thank you so much. And we come to Faisal from Growtech, who has been, I think, probably the oldest in terms of precision agriculture or satellite imagery-based reporting Agritech in Pakistan. So this morning, there was a lot of talk about changing the user journey as an enabler or an accelerator to digital transformation. So how do you see that happening over the last 2 years or so since you guys have been in business? And what would be some of your advice to probably some people who aspire to be Agritech entrepreneurs or want to partner with Agritech? What's the promise and how are you transforming the user journeys?
Yeah, thank you. The main thing what we try to do is the Agtech, Fintech, financial inclusion. These are big words, but these are not in essence the objectives. The objectives is different. From our perspective, what we have created the overall working model for us and with the farmers is that can we create a win-win situation for everybody Agtech is very important so that we can produce the data-driven analytics, data-driven advisories, and the data-driven actionable items for the farmers, जो वो इस्तेमाल they can use on their farms. Or end of day, they produce some tangible results out of that. So, हम पूरे crop cycle पे work with the farmers. Our main purpose is that we will use the technology, we will equip you with the technology and the education and the necessary knowledge for the crop, but by the end of crop cycle, we will create the disposable income for you. So, the last wheat season, we shared our case study, like rightly mentioned, the climate change. Again, climate change is not only for Pakistan, it's happening all around the world, the people are coping with it. So we use these data points, we use these data analytics to assist our farmers. And even then, on the last wheat cycle, 43% we increased their disposable income in terms of investment optimization and then their yield enhancement. So the point is, Agtech, like we are all in this domain, and it's rightly so, okay, awareness level is increasing across Pakistan and people understanding this is very important. But this is where we are different. We don't flood the farmer or the end user with the data, oh, we are the digital company and we will do this, we will do this. So what is the point? Use case is very important and the win-win situation. That I think that we are one of the company who charge farmers because we say it's the win-win situation. We will create money for you out of your farm, existing farm, and again, ma'am mentioned, we are working with the Thekedars, we are working with the absentee farmers living in UK or US. So we connected the urban community back to the rural community. So we told them, guys, you own the land, you are making the investment. Million of rupees you are burning every year, so we will create the profitability for you out of these farms. So I think this is very important to understand for digital inclusion, financial inclusion, or agri-tech inclusion. Are we ready to work thoroughly throughout the crop cycle, season, and risk sharing? Like there are so many discussion happening today, and maybe tomorrow as well, that we are ready to lend. Why people are not getting the loans? 4% only, and maybe they are mostly in urban sector. Why not in agriculture sector, rural community? People mention the Zaraat is Mulk ki backbone, reed ki haddi hai. Oh bhai, reed ki haddi is not getting loan from you. They are going to the Arti, to the Mandi. Why? So it means use case is not there. Agriculture portfolio for every financial institution in Pakistan in the last decade from 25-24% has gone down to 5-6% probably. Please, because I'm the aggregate domain, not the financial domain, so you can correct my numbers, but around 5-6%. So it means use case is not there. Cost of business on the loan side is very high, mentioned in the last panel as well. So I think these are the points where we think as a GrowTech, we created the collaborations. And I think financial institute, seed companies, government bodies, any input suppliers, buyers, we are not trying to reinvent the wheel. We are collaborating with the people. Where people are not ready to work on farm, we are there. We are ready to work. And on the other, you are the technical hand, you are the financial hand, you are the input hand, we work with you. We are not going to replicate efforts. So I think we created good harmony in our domain. We are working with the banks. We are working with the input suppliers. The whole idea is wherever we can create 1, 2, 3, 4% benefit for the farmers, we go to them. Whatever effort we have to make, but we bring them on board. So this is probably
that's excellent. And actually that's what my next question is to pretty much all of you is, so there are challenges with respect to digital transformation and digital adoption. The good news that I hear from most of you is that the farmers are ready. They're ready as long as there is value created for them. So for WhatsApp, I would like you to share, some of your experience with from your sister organization, Reap Agro, which is trying to bring in more financial inclusion through contract farming. Tell us a little bit about the factors which has helped you succeed, and then what are probably some barriers that are kind of barriers to scale. How can that be scaled really quickly?
Right. So first of all, why REAP Agro? Why did they go into contract farming? Again, State Bank has very ambitious agri-lending targets. This year they plan to, the target is 1.8 trillion rupees, if I'm not mistaken. While this is all very good, commercial banks do not lend to farmers who have less than 12.5 acres of land holding. So the farmers who need the funds most, they have no access to it. More than 70% of the farmers have land holdings of under 5 acres. So these are this is the segment that we are addressing. This is the segment that REAP Agro is working with. Currently, they are working in 2 value chains, potatoes and maize, in districts Swabi and district Mardan. So the model is that they provide the inputs to the farmers as in-kind interest-free loan. And then they guide the farmers through the entire crop life cycle, during which the farmers also have access to Bakhabar Kisan's whole suite of services, weather, remote advisory, and so on. And then at the end of the crop life cycle, they buy back the produce. REAP Agro has back-to-back contracts with the likes of, with large food processors. So they are able to get a good price. And the incomes of these farmers who are working with us have gone up over, between 30 to 50% over the last few years. We embed a few other things into the lending process. All the farmers are required to take out index-based crop insurance. So we started that practice in 2021, and now we did a pilot which was successful, and now we do not lend without the index-based insurance. So the challenge, when we started off REAP Agro, we were using our own funds. So let's say we were working with about 2,000 farmers, and the loan size in terms of rupees for each farmer was, let's say, on the average 100,000 rupees. That's 200 million rupees of capital stuck for 4.5 months. Clearly not sustainable. Growth is going to be very difficult. So last year we started working with fintechs. We have Finja on board. We are working with some other fintechs. We're working with banks as well, who are using REAP Agro as an intermediary. They lend to REAP Agro, but not to the individual farmer. And that is helping us scale. Grow. Of course, the entire process, the onboarding process, it's all digitized. We would like to create and make all payments digitally. We do create wallets for the farmers. It's part of, it's one of the KPIs. But digital payments have their own challenges in rural areas. Agents often charge extra commissions. They do not have sufficient float oftentimes. So farmers are reluctant to, they're reluctant to accept digital payments. But we are, nudging the farmers, encouraging them, and because we accept digital payments, farmers have an option of paying us rather than cashing out. So it's the whole ecosystem has to be developed for digital payments to increase. But coming back to Reap Agro and how we are scaling, we are adding other value chains, and we are moving into districts outside KP. The next step is to move into districts like neighboring districts like Atak, and then certain districts in the potato growing region in central Punjab. One of the interesting things that happens is in this model, when we buy back the produce is, safeguarded. As you're aware, in fruits and vegetables, the post-harvest losses are as high as 40%. So farmers, we buy the produce from the farmers immediately after harvest and use appropriate transportation to deliver the produce to the large processors with minimal loss in between. Otherwise, farmers are at the mercy of the proverbial arti or the middleman. He may delay, produce may rot. So there's lots of ecosystem challenges over there.
So coming back to Muzaffar, so I think in one or two other panelists also identified that the share of agriculture in overall lending in Pakistan as compared to its GDP contribution is very low. Fuad Sahib is saying that the farmers who need credit the most, they're not the ones who are getting it from commercial banks who've got the biggest deposits. But when you talk to the banks, they say that either it has to be a collateralized loan or we need some data points so that we could do clean lending, which is safer, because it's easier to lend, it's very difficult to recover. So as an Agritech who does a lot of remote sensing, produces a lot of data, what data points do you see can solve at least some of this problem? And do you see any global examples which could be replicated here in Pakistan?
Absolutely. So I just want to address the whole Aarti question because he's been mentioned a number of times, and the Aarti really is demonized, and I'm not saying that that behavior is not predatory at all. They definitely are. But वो आरती से लोन क्यों लेता है? फार्मर जो है वो तो हिसाब किताब वाला आदमी है, वो आरती से क्यों लोन ले रहा है? फार्मर बेवकूफ़ नहीं है, जाहिल ज़रूर होगा, अनपढ़ होगा, बेवकूफ़ नहीं है. वो आरती से लोन ले रहा है because उसको वो चुपचाप दे देता है. So
it's easier to take a loan from the RT.
No, because he's ready to give it. It's not even about easy. So if the RT was asking the farmer to do 10 cartwheels through hoops of fire, the farmer will do it and pay 50% interest on top because the RT is willing to give it, right? So I want to set the stage for this answer to be more of willingness than of data availability. So they came. If a certain financial institution was willing to accept that farmers don't always want to give up collateral. When a farmer has to sign a stack of papers in 8-size font in Urdu or English or any language that you please, उसको वहीं पे पसीने छूट जाते हैं. उसको लगता है कि यहाँ पे सारी मेरी ज़मीन गिरवी रखा ली है और ये अब मुझे ठुडे मार के निकाल देंगे. और वो ठीक सोच रहा है because उसके साथ historically यही हुआ है. He's very aware of how isolated he is in the grand scheme of things. So it takes a willingness to acknowledge where the farmer is coming from. Now, if there is someone who's willing to understand this, if there's a bank, if there's a fintech, if there's an organization or REAP, there's plenty of data points because the lack of willingness is arising from a space of risk. We are in a position and we're doing this. It takes us all of maybe 45 seconds to develop this. It's all automated. These machine learning algorithms are in place. There's hundreds of thousands, if not millions of data points that have already been validated. So we're offering this directly to the farmer right now because it has an impact on their farming practices. It has an impact on their input usage, input costs, and so forth. तो जहाँ हम ये बता सकते हैं कि इस इलाके में पिछले 5 साल में you are a farmer, आपके farm में productivity zones कहाँ हैं? Based on crop yields in your farm this year and the last 5 years, or if you wish, the last 10 years, but that's kind of redundant. And we can advise you कि NPK जिसकी कीमतें बढ़ती जा रही हैं, आपको कहाँ पे डालना है, कहाँ नहीं डालना, और किस एरिया को तो आप जाके इन्वेस्टिगेट करें एज अपोज टू जाके और दो हाथों से आप छट्टा लगा के आएँ NP और DAP और SOP का. तो जहाँ ये इन्फॉर्मेशन प्रोड्यूस की जा रही है, इसी इन्फॉर्मेशन के बेसिस के ऊपर जब आप पूरे एरिया की प्रोडक्टिविटी देखें, इलाके की, आप उस इलाके के वेदर ट्रेंड्स देखें, क्रॉप ट्रेंड्स देखें. देखिए फ्यूचर तो कोई प्रिडिक्ट नहीं कर सकता, बट ये हमें पता है कि हर साल सैलाब आना है. Right? Now what are we going to do about it? So if there's a data set that allows you to identify your degree of risk, and you mix that with the willingness to walk away from your traditional मुझे ज़मीन के कागजात गिरवी कराओ, तो फार्मर आपसे भी लोन लेना शुरू कर देगा. But that data does exist. Other countries are doing it. Nigeria is very hardcore about it. गुर्बत वहाँ भी है, फार्मर वहाँ का भी गरीब है, छोटा फार्मर वहाँ का भी है, सारे मसले मसाइल वहाँ भी हैं. हम कोई यूनिक नहीं है. But Nigeria is doing something about it. China के अंदर, my bank has partnered with Alipay. It's all over Google. They're doing a fantastic job. फार्मर को बोलते हैं कि आप सिर्फ गूगल पे अपने फार्म की निशानदेही कर दो, 4 लकीरें खींच लो और बेसिक्स बता दो, अपना नाम, अपना शनाख्ती कार्ड जो भी वहाँ का इक्विवेलेंट है, आप अपना क्रॉप टाइप हमें लिख दो. And in under 3 minutes, they have algorithms which exist over here. I know it's very new, but in the grand scheme of things, it's no rocket science. Israel is doing it, India is doing it, Bangladesh is all over it. And in a span of 3 minutes, जब वो farmer ने अपना बहुत basic information submit कर दी है, वो assess कर लेते हैं इस farmer की ज़मीन का क्या हाल है, फसल का क्या हाल है, पिछले 4-5 साल से क्या हालात हैं, इसके इलाके के अंदर weather conditions क्या हैं, ये इलाका सैलाब में कितनी बार डूबा है, उसके basis पे credit scoring आती है और वो farmer को loan दे देते हैं. So, I'm not saying it's easy, but nobody said it was going to be easy. It is very possible if there is a willingness at play.
Fair point. I think you've definitely, made some of our banking friends think a little more about this. So, Arslan, you mentioned about MasterCard Farmers Network. I think it's probably now in India as well. How is that solving the financial inclusion challenge for the farmers? And do you see, or how do you think it could be replicated here in Pakistan as well?
So, I think the key takeaway that's coming across here is that data is available, farmers are being engaged. There definitely are, there's the Aarti question, but again, if I would just answer that before, there's 2 ways of looking at the Aarti thing today. So it's definitely not predatory, right? They've developed centuries, I would say years and decades of relationships with small farmers who do not have access to form of financial services, right? So to answer your question, so we have launched Farm Pass, obviously, in our neighbor. We've got 2 engagements there. We've also done it in 3 markets in Africa. These are emerging markets, agri-based, where agri is a large part of the, I would say, the GDP or the economy, right? So how Farm Pass works today is that if you take Pakistan scenario, so you have the farmer, you've got the input dealer, then you've got the actor, for example, who disperses subsidy, then you've got the advisory organizations that help in weather, help in the GIS mapping and the analytics, even down to the marketplace, right? It kind of connects all these actors into one ecosystem, right? It's not only a technical platform, but it's also, we bring in our expertise and our know-how and help design this, right? But we work in a partnership model, right? So in India, for example, we're working with an Agritech and a microfinance company, right? Same thing applies also in I would say Uganda and Tanzania, right? So there's different actors with different ways, but they have different objectives and different markets. So, so in our particular scenario, Pakistan's ecosystem is huge. It's massive, right? So if again, we're here because for one simple reason is that how can we make financial inclusion be accelerated in Pakistan, right? Take the large chunk of the cash-based economy and basically make it more digitized, right? End game basically is that how do we serve the farmer, right? So the main thing today is that the whole ecosystem is not digitized, right? So the data is available. Fuad Saab spoke about Swabi and Mardan and Atak, right? These are small areas. There's certain areas, but then there's South Punjab, there's North Sindh, right? We have the cash crops, we've got livestock, we've got You've got cotton as well. So what we do today, what we would help is work with our partners to kind of connect this into the ecosystem, right? So imagine if the farmer was connected to the digital ecosystem, the input dealers connected to the ecosystem, they were transacting with each other, right? There would be access to inventory financing for the input dealer, because MSME, access of lending available to the farmer as well. Then if you manage to also digitize, let's supposing the mandi. I mean, today, for example, we have not been able to digitize mandi rates, right? I mean, there's different mandis across which is your output marketplace, right? So that's one test case as well. What we basically do is we just connect the ecosystem. We support our partners in the ecosystem. So today we have about a little under 2 years, about 2 million farmers that have been added onto the ecosystem. Wow. Doing almost 2x, 3x worth of growth in terms of transactions, in terms of efficiency. So the main thing is the efficiency in the system in terms of visibility, right? So when you digitize, there's more transparency, right? With transparency, there's more analytics available. So with the transparency, the farmer is now in better control, right, of the prices which are being set, his margins, etc. I mean, today it's a very informal economy, right? So he is lending from, he is taking loans from the Aarti, and then he's coming back, but his margins are very low, right? So subsistence is there. So when you talk in terms of digitization of the farmer, the merchant, you bring in the financial institutions, you bring in the fintechs, you bring in the agritechs, you bring in the donor organizations. So we connect all the dots into one ecosystem, and I think that's the conversation we're trying to have here.
Great, and we look forward to have MasterCard launch the same in Pakistan. Fatma, again zeroing in on the smallholder farmers, especially women, what are the challenges that you feel they have when it comes to access to financial services, especially lending, and that to productivity lending to improve their crop yields, efficiencies, and profitability of the farm?
So we are talking about agri-financing and agri-lending, right?
Of course.
So you see, almost 60% of the workforce in agri is female, right? But the thing is, you will hardly come across any female landowner. मेल तो है ही नहीं, स्मॉल होल्डर, स्मॉल टू मीडियम साइज फार्मर्स, उनके पास तो मेल के पास भी नहीं ओनरशिप, फीमेल के पास तो बिल्कुल भी नहीं है. एंड दिस इज़ मेनली ड्यू टू आवर इनहेरिटेंस कल्चर. It's not Sharia compliant because you see the fathers, they want to pass it on to their sons mostly. So you see, if you ask me what are the challenges in access to agri-financing, to be very honest, I have never come across any female looking for financing in agriculture sector because they don't even have ownership. They are just workers, they are the labor class. मुझे अगर आप देख लें या फिर I'm not a landlord, any वो big time sort of a farmer, small to medium ही है मेरा भी. But the thing is, बहुत ही कम families हैं, progressive and some of the feudal families जो थोड़ा बहुत अपनी बेटियों में pass on कर देते हैं, but वो भी बहुत ही छोटी population है. So access of financing is not there. If you want to bring that on board, number one, land reform laws, it's high time that we start working on those and make inheritance laws Sharia compliant.
Okay, fair point. Faisal, have been producing satellite imagery based data for probably the longest in Pakistan, and it was really heartening to hear when you mentioned that based on those data sets you were able to guide farmers to reduce their cost of inputs and increase their yields to a level where at an average the farmers' income increased by up to 40%. How can that help them? How can these data points be shared with the fintech industry and the banks at large to help them access more funding or lending so that they can perhaps further improve their practices, improve their yields, and probably move towards high-value agriculture, which brings in a lot more money than the crops generally that we grow in Pakistan today?
Like I said before, 43% was the profitability increase in last wheat season, and now we will publish the rice crop season. The profitability increased for the farmers, and this time we will trying the third party publish this, so it's more viable for the people. So for the data points, Muzaffar also mentioned, we are already running pilot with PMIC, where we have created the entirely different lending model. Because if we don't believe in the parachute lending, then the Agtech and the FinTech are the natural allies. How I will try to explain. From the Agtech perspective, we are working with the farmers. We are farm level, doing intervention on the farm level. So FinTech. So what we have created with the help of PMIC, we created a running finance or the need-based financial model for the farmers. So we don't stick on the selling or the buying side. What we have done, that because our agronomy teams are working with the farmers, so we create, whenever the farmer's crop has some need, automatically it generates the trigger. Farmer vet it, our agronomy vet it, that the need is there. Maybe it's the fertilizer, it's the spray, it's the irrigation model, you want to buy some diesel, or diesel to आपको कहीं से नहीं मिलता, आपको खरीदना ही है. So in that case the cash type. So running model and the markup is also running based on the finances used, funds used, not the like term financing model, no. And then on like Muzaffar probably mentioned, that collateral. So on collateral model, currently we see that for maybe 1 million loan, the collateral is around 10 million. So you can share the collateral. So we have created the different collateral models. Like what? Shared collateral. We know that the one brother or father has asked for the loan 200K, and out of that collateral we have is already 1 million plus. So his son may be able to apply for the loan as well. So at the same time, he has the machinery, he has the house, maybe he has some shop. So some flexibility from the FinTech perspective is very necessary. That's the reason we are running this. We are using our own data, we are creating the data points, and we are creating the whole new credit scoring model. Why? Previously, the discussion was on purpose-built lending models. So when we are doing the purpose-built lending model, so the farmer is, or maybe the person is secondary, the purpose is primary. So you need to see that this farm can produce the enough revenue so that he will repay the loan. And then the important point, where we are working also, that the insurance model does not cater the farming community. Loan insurance is there, crop insurance is not there. So in case of any calamity like the flood this year, banks are safe. They will get the 25 acre tak unki to insurance hui hai bhai. They will get their money. So what about the farmers? How to come back on their feet, go back to their lands? So this is where the FinTech and Agtech and natural lies. You need to run these new models, not the term financing, and risk sharing, I think should be there. In a way, I'm not saying that we pay to the farmers for any loss happening on their farm, but in a way that we assist them to foresee the risks, like we are doing. So what we are doing, we are not giving them extra money or maybe anything like that, rather they are paying to us. But the surety we create that there will be nothing wrong with your crop until there is some natural calamity. So the banks are, that's the reason the Thekedar, absentee farmers, small, big farmers are working with us, banks are working with us, and the big corporates are working with us. That the idea is improve profitability, if disposable income of the farmers, so they are able to take risk. Like we really want to use sensors, like sir mentioned, but the cost of the sensor is there. So how we will sell to the small farmers? वो कहते हैं भाई मेरी खाद नहीं पूरी होती. So these things we need to look at, and this is the reason, like I said before, we need to really work on the right use cases.
Yeah, first of all, just a quick question on what you just mentioned as your personal practice or experience from working with the farmers. Are you guys also using some parametric or weather index based insurance provider to work with your farmers? Or otherwise, I mean, all loans by definition are covered with the insurance that you mentioned. So the bank gets all the money that they have given, but that's only in cases of natural calamity. But are you using any of these new crop insurance providers?
We have created a new product for the insurance. and we have shared it with all the insurance companies in Pakistan, and only one company has accepted so far.
Okay.
Because our
That's a
idea
start.
was very simple. That trigger point and the claim generation will be automated by the system. Because all the data is available. Whether it's the weather, whether it's the flood, some calamity is there, some disease tag is there, everything is documented now, and the panel knows everything about that. So why we need a person to go, oh, यहाँ pest tag आया है, यहाँ बारिश ज़्यादा हुई है, why? So insurance company, only one insurance company is working with us at the minute, rest has refused, and we hope by the next crop cycle we will launch this product. I hope so. Otherwise, what we have planned, like we are doing the lending model on our own, that if this doesn't happen, we will do this product ourselves. So to facilitate the farmers. So if you see things from the farmer perspective, like whole discussion we are having here before and after, all is from the corporate classes. Why we are not able to sell our products? Why there are defaults? Why they are not getting money from us? We are giving you, why? So take a pause, think from their perspective.
I think one company signing up with you is a good sign. I hope it's a successful pilot, and then others will follow.
Thank
so
you so
that
much.
brings us nicely towards the end of our panel discussion, and I would now take 3 to 4 questions. So we've got a gentleman here. Could somebody please pass on the... Five. Please mention कीजिएगा if it is for a particular panelist or is it for all. Please introduce yourself and go ahead.
My name is Abrar. I am a technology professional. I am looking into investment in the fintech sector. And first, I thank you all for sharing very good insights about the fintech and the agritech industry. My question is, due to these floods, there is a situation which is very tough in the whole country. The whole crop area is disturbed. The poor people who were previously doing this contract farming or some ad hoc farming, now they are into big trouble, right? And we have this fintech industry and the banks and the government who is looking into to improve the situation. And this is a test of time for the whole industry, which I believe that how these things work. If you cannot make it work now, it won't be able to work in future as well. Because the situation is very worse, right, than the previous years. So what's your plan? How you will collaborate to make this different kind of models which are operating in different segments from the fintech and the aggregate tech sector work together to make sure that this thing is like farmers get benefited and they get the money, because right now they don't have any collateral because it's all washed away with the flood. They don't have any means to, do the farming again, because I have a servant, he lives in interior Sindh, and he spent 6 weeks at his home to just rebuild it. But the flood water still there is like 3 feet level, right? So there is like another few months which will take some time. Yeah. So how you will make your models work? Because right now the segment you are targeting is is in a very worse condition than the previous years.
Yeah, so I think the question is that we know the devastation with respect to the floods. Climate risk is a big challenge. How do you see the industry coming together to solve this for our collective future? What's up? Maybe?
So, excellent question. There's no easy answer. From our perspective, what we are doing is कि जो flood affected areas हैं, वहाँ we are advising the farmers on how the cropping cycle has changed, will change. और गोइंग फॉरवर्ड उनके इलाके में कौन सी डिजीज़ के चांसेस ज़्यादा हैं, कौन से इंसेक्ट्स के चांसेस ज़्यादा हैं, सो व्हाट प्रिकॉशनरी मेजर्स टू टेक, सो दैट्स व्हाट वी आर डूइंग. आई थिंक आपका सवाल जो है वो दैट्स अ ब्रॉडर क्वेश्चन because it relates to their financial ability to bounce back. Wo, unfortunately, it's beyond the scope of what we are doing. I think I can speak for all the companies over here. कि हम satellite monitoring से भी we can find out hotspots for disease and provide early warnings. वो हम कर रहे हैं, and I think Farmdar भी कर रहा है, Agrotech भी कर रहा है. But जो आपका सवाल है कि वो how will they bounce back? It's above my
just to add a couple of points. I think when a natural calamity hits an area, then it's more about the industry and the government coming together. So you see a lot of subsidies given by the government, price support of the crops, and then of course there are lots of donations and discounted products being given to those farmers in those areas. We have time for one more question.
Sorry, I just want to add a small point to what you asked. देखिए, अगर आपका सवाल ये है कि जब गरीब फार्मर अगले साल डूबेगा, अल्लाह माफ़, क्या उस तक पैसा पहुँचेगा, उसको एड पहुँचेगा. Is there a long line of banks wanting to hand out loans to farmers that have been devastated and have little to no means of paying back? I don't see that happening. Now the question is what we can do to help him recover otherwise, or what we can do to help him be financially able enough to prepare for when that day comes. It is coming again next year, guaranteed. Climate change is not selective. It doesn't skip years. So what we are trying to do, and what Fuad Saab's doing, and pretty much everyone over here is doing, is trying to equip the farmer with the means to have better farming economies at play. कम खर्चा करने में वो अपनी यील्ड बढ़ा सके ताकि उसकी जेब में 2 रुपए हों, ताकि अगले साल जब ये सब कुछ आए उसकी जेब में कुछ पैसे हों. So it's a pessimistic answer, but that I mean I want to kind of use this opportunity to lay out some facts because that's a fact.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Muzaffar. Last questions, sir. If somebody could pass on the mic to him. Okay, Asad, could you please give him an opportunity?
Assalamualaikum. So my name is Zain and I'm representing Easy Fresh over here, and I have a question, and the question revolves around the fact जैसे इन्होंने अभी question raise किया था climate के ऊपर. I was sitting with a few आरतीस, and obviously if I'm talking about agriculture, आरती तो आना ही था कि every आरती is also right now in a very bad position कि यार climate के मसले हैं, हम पैसे देते हैं, हर दूसरे तीसरे साल बाद पैसे डूब जाते हैं. So don't you think this is the perfect opportunity for you guys to partner up with the Aarti when you are coming up with solutions like providing aerial views, soil testing and all these? And Aarti के पास पिछले 1000 साल का डेटा पड़ा हुआ है, किस फार्मर को पैसे देने हैं, कौन सा फार्मर पैसे वापस करता है, उसकी क्रॉप कैसी होती है, क्रॉप बुरी होती है, अच्छी होती है, उसकी लैंड होल्डिंग कितनी है. So isn't this the perfect opportunity to partner up with the Aarti and reach out to the landowners or the farmers?
Fatma, you want to take it, please?
I think that's a great question. Today I was speaking to somebody, and I did say that Aarti is your data gold mine, and as you said that this is a great opportunity to bring Aarti into the formal channel, because they are also looking a way out and partnering with somebody so that unka business chalta rahe, kaam sham chalta rahe. You see, again I'll speak from my experience. अब जैसे सारे जो ट्रेडिशनल आर्टीज़ हैं, इनके वालिद साहब ने भी किया था, दादा ने भी किया था, परदादा ने भी किया था. अभी जो है ना ये वाली जनरेशन, a lot of them are actually very educated, very well spoken, very polite, and they show professionalism. So I think अगर ये सारे जो हम लोग वो हैं players, if we identify the right sort of artists to work with, they will understand what we are talking about.
Thank you so much, Fatma, and that brings an end to this panel discussion. I think the overall message is that the farmers are ready for digital transformation. They actually welcome new tools that can help them make more money, but it has to be done using human-centric design and developing trust in the ecosystem. Data is available. It's up to us now how we collaborate and come together as an industry to make use of it and transform agriculture in Pakistan. Thank you so much, guys. You have been a wonderful panel. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Habib, and thank you to our panelists. And clearly, this is a topic of great interest because everyone's had questions, so that's really wonderful. We will now formally be closing our conference, Breaking Barriers Through Digital Financial Inclusion. I invite you all to come in tomorrow at 9:30 a.m. We will be starting with a women's forum panel, which I expect will be the best panel of this forum. And we certainly are going to hear some very interesting perspectives. This will be followed by a panel on AI, Web3, NFTs, Metaverse, and then we have a design workshop on Rast and future of FinTech, including PMIC coming and sharing their views. So do join us. Thank you for being a great audience, and see you all tomorrow.